Let's bring in the Democratic leader of the House right now, Nancy Pelosi. Thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
So you heard Sarah Sanders right there talk about this idea of a special committee looking into the Russia ties with the Trump campaign. Also, pretty much saying that there will not be any recusal, at least for now, from the Attorney General. Your response?
Well, as you read the law and saw the law, the Attorney General must recuse himself. But let's just take it back a step. You have seen a flurry of activities that are completely inappropriate, encouraging lawmakers, encouraging intelligence officials to say that something is one way or another. Let's have the investigation and find out the truth. And we've been calling, we have 100 now plus one Republican on Eric Swalwell's bill for an outside independent commission to study the personal, political, and financial relationship between President Trump and the Russians.
So far, these efforts have been quashed by the Republican leadership in the House, and you're getting some pressure from Democrats to go farther. Michael Moore put out a tweet this week. He said, tell your senators and House members now you want them to cease all business till they appoint a special committee on Trump and the Russians. He gave the phone number there as well. Are you ready to go that far?
Well, let me just say there is no business. Let's put this in time. You did at the beginning of the show. In a couple of days, it'll be 40 days. 40 days, 40 hours, 40 days, 40 years in the desert. 40 is fraught with meaning and symbolism. When President Obama was sworn in on the steps of the Capitol, he asked for swift, bold action now for jobs and education for the 21st century, a list and agenda. 1 week and 1 day from that swearing in, the House passed the ARA, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. 1 week later, the Senate passed it on February 17th, 4 weeks from his inauguration. He signed a bill which saved or created 4 million jobs. He had already signed, Lilly Ledbetter signed S-CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program. By the time he had his first address to the joint session, as it is called, the first speech, he could say, this is what I asked for, this is what we've done in the first 4 weeks. What has the Trump administration done from their inaugural address where they talked about decay and carnage? They've done nothing except put Wall Street first, make America sick again, instill fear in our immigrant population in our country, and make sure that Russia maintains its grip on our foreign policy.
You saw Sarah Sanders right there, who's going to talk about Obamacare on Tuesday night, would not say that the president can guarantee.
No, he can't guarantee because, you know what, the Republicans have been banging at the moon for 7 years. In March, it will be 7 years since the president signed the bill. They've been banging at the moon that they had a better idea. They've come up with nothing. They say repeal and replace. That has alliteration, but that's all it has going for it because they don't have a replacement. What they have put forth, an outline, will cost more to consumers. It will cover fewer people. It will give tax breaks to the wealthiest people. Imagine in what the president wants to do. The 400 wealthiest families in America will get a tax break of $7 million a year.
But if they do follow through and repeal Obamacare, won't Democrats...
They won't be able to do that.
They're not going to be able to do it?
How can they do it? They do not have the votes. They have alliteration, but they don't have votes.
Humor me for a second. If they do, won't Democrats have a duty to go in there and help repair it so that the people who will lose coverage, according to your analyses, don't lose that coverage?
We go in there to repair. Here's the thing. When we did the Affordable Care Act, if everyone loved their care, if everyone loved it, which they didn't, and their insurance, we would still have had to do it because the escalating cost of health care in our country were unsustainable to individuals, to families, to small business, to corporate America, and to the public sector. The costs were just soaring. So we do the care, and it had three goals. One, to lower costs, the other, to expand benefits, and the third, to increase access of many more people. 20,400,000 people now have health care who didn't have it before. But this is the important part. 155 million people who get their health insurance through their workplace now have expanded benefits, stop the rate of increase of cost, but No longer will you have a pre-existing condition prevent you from getting care.
I understand that's what's in the middle.
No, I understand that, but
if they repeal it, don't you have an obligation to protect those who are going to lose their coverage?
Well, it isn't a question of that. You have to have the full package. If they come up with something that keeps lowering cost, expanding coverage, and improving benefits, then we can have something to talk about. But we haven't seen anything to talk to them about yet in any category.
And
they
you
have
don't
put
think
forth nothing. So when he makes his address on the 40 days that he's been president, he has nothing to show for it but fear in every way, to people who are sick, fear to people who are immigrants, fear to people who are concerned about the greed on Wall Street taking us back to where we were.
What kind of a reception is the president going to get on Tuesday? And I've read that some Democrats are thinking of bringing guests who they believe have been impacted by the president's policies.
Well, that would be a normal thing to do. I myself would bring a guest who is a dreamer. I will bring a guest who who lost her son through gun violence, and I'll bring a guest who is a symbol of the freedom of the press, which the president, in his authoritarian manner, is attacking. And I think that's really our biggest guardian of our democracy is the First Amendment, the freedom of the press.
Are there any issues where you feel you can still work with the president? Back in November, you talked about infrastructure. The president's talked about perhaps a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. We don't know if he's going to propose one on Tuesday. Is that something Democrats can get behind?
Well, let's just talk about that for a moment, because I call him the deflector in chief. He has no jobs bill. I talked about President Obama in the first 4 weeks, 4 million jobs. He has no jobs bill, so he's got to talk about the press. He has no jobs bill, so he has to talk about kids, transgender kids in school. He has no jobs bill, so he has to talk about immigrants and have a ban on Muslims coming to the country. So all of this is a deflection from the fact he has done nothing. So we haven't seen a jobs bill. We haven't seen
But you have an open mind on it?
Well, if he has, as I've said to him and as I've said publicly, if he has an infrastructure bill that really helps to address the deficit we have in our infrastructure in our country, let's talk about it. But if it is, yet again, another tax break for his rich friends disguised as an infrastructure bill, we're not going there.
Congressman Pelosi, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.